Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. From a cold outside, we have Edwin. Hi, Edwin.
Martin, I told you I'd be bringing it live from the mountains. It is a little bit nippy, but it's exciting being out here. I had to climb a very tall gum tree just to get reception.
Well, it's good, and I like the lighting as well. Congratulations on that. It's looking very good. So you're up a mountain, up a tree.
Yeah, well, that's right. I had to use I've got a pack of glowworms around. Rouse them up and put them together so they can give me a bit of lighting.
Well, it's good. Just keep rubbing the glowworms or whatever you do to glowworms to make them keep glowing. They'll be fine.
Well, that's right. It's better than all the scams that are out there at the moment, Martin. What's with scams, real estate agents, politicians, banks, and more scams? What's going on?
Yeah, scams everywhere, I'll tell you. And you dipped your toe into crypto land, madman.
Oh, look, it's you got to do it, haven't you? I mean, you can't not invest into it. Surely. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's look. I guess after our fifth client that made close to $2 million in crypto and put it all in property, there's got to be something about it. And I felt, let's rather than just criticize it, let's learn about it. Let's dip our toes in and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, you might know or you might not know, but I've actually held some crypto for a number of years. So. But it's not really an investment, Edwin. It's a speculation. Let's be clear, shall we?
Well, can you get any better than high-rise developments, mate?
Well, that is, of course, the point. That in fact, I would argue that there is a speculative element to property, stocks and shares at the moment, and crypto. So it's all the same. So don't talk about fundamental value. Talk about trading the momentum.
Well, look, that's right, and now the government's really going hell for leather with taxing people down in Victoria with the proposed taxes, ongoing duties, land taxes. I mean, it's all in. It's just madness out there. So I felt let's take on a bit of that madness and let's get into crypto and see what all the cryptolians out there, what tips they have to throw my way so as I can get started.
Fair enough. Well, yes, just watch out for dodgy coins rather than doggy coins, right?
Well, Dusty and Evan have made a bit of money on Dodge coin, so let's see how I go.
Okay, excellent. Now, how are you settling in there? So you've moved to your tree change lifestyle, and you sent us through a video, so we might play that actually. And there's quite a lot of land there, enough to put a high rise on.
Well, I thought about that. I thought I'd make a call to a few of my developer mates, Lebanese mates, and see how we can go. See how low we can go. The sky's the limit, they tell me up here in the mountains. But no, Martin. I think I have to start pacing out where I'm going to put the carrots and the cabbage and Brussels sprouts and whatever else I can grow out here. It's just that's the whole purpose of it. Not necessarily to start building any high rise in the mountains. They already did that in Lura, and I think that's that went to shit because only 50% of them are occupied, I'm told. But then again, why would you move to Lura and to live in an apartment block right next to the railway station? Figure that one out, man.
Well, yes, I suppose it's convenient for commuting to the city, but apart from that, there isn't really much going for it. And the plot you got there looks great. And once you've worked out which way to put the carrot seeds in, you might get some carrots.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'll have to work out how to put the carrot seeds in and how to the pea seeds and all that sort of stuff. It's mind-boggling. It's going to be interesting. We'll see where it goes. It's a bit of space, bit of room to meditate. It's also an opportunity. I'm getting up a lot earlier, obviously, to get to the office. on time and so forth. But not only that, but it's the air's fresh. It's look, I recommend it to a lot of people. And yeah, look, it is a bit cold, but I seem to sleep better in the cold weather anyway.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I don't know whether you've noticed it, but I've noticed it when I came out of Sydney and came down to the south coast here, right? The air is so much fresher. And when I go back up to Sydney, I can smell and taste all those exhaust fumes and all that pollution. I lived there for years and never really thought about it once. But boy, when you have to immerse yourself in it and then go back to a clean area, you realise just how bad it is.
Look, it is. And like I said, I'm getting up earlier, and I'm able to do a bit of exercise, and it's just a lot fresher. It is it is a huge change. It's as you come up the mountains, you can feel it. It's nice and frosty at the moment. It's tolerable, but we'll see. It's I think a lot of people are moving. I've noticed, and as I'm working with a lot of clients as well, looking into the mountains, looking into other regions as well of not far from the centres of Sydney, even north, looking for a couple of clients up in the north, towards Asquith and Hornsby Heights and those areas up there. And it's people want to make that lifestyle change, and that's what a lot of the WeChat chatters are saying. Sell your dodgy apartments, get out of the apartment market and start putting your money into land, because that is the future. And it's all about lifestyle, isn't it, Martin? It's about lifestyle. It's about trying to have some form of control with regard to all the uncertainty that's out there. I feel with the from the information that I get from a lot of our lawyers and our friends that are lawyer friends that are involved with criminal law and also, unfortunately, with family law, there's a lot of crime and there's a lot of pain that families that live closest to the CBDs and the commercial hubs that are feeling because of that tightness and that restriction and not being able to move and not being able to be as free as what we were, a year and a half ago.
No, well, that's right. And the development processes have really pressed in on a lot of those inner suburban areas, and their character has changed dramatically. So it's not surprising that people look further out and enjoy the more open spaces. I always say to people, yeah, it's great being out of the smoke. Just don't tell everybody. We don't want everybody to come down here.
I lost you. The reception went a bit down. A couple of wombats just decided to go past, and they disrupted the audio. They were chatting about some crazy bastards from Sydney coming up to the mountains. You're going to have to speak up a little bit more, Martin.
Well, we won't make it too nice, because we don't want everybody following suit.
No, it is interesting what's happening up here in terms of lifestyle. As I said, we've been looking up here in the mountains for the last 6 months for clients. Even over the mountains, we've gone as far as parks to look for property for clients, and it's rather interesting to see how the landscape is changing. The unfortunate thing, though, however, Martin, is that with the price surges that they've been experienced. Up the mountains and over the mountains, it's also putting the locals, in a position where they've got to go further out, and they've got to go further afield, and they've also not been able to enjoy the lifestyles that they had 2 years ago. Particularly if they have to move into a rental property, the rental properties that they move into are got to be smaller because rents are just going through the roof. But it's something that you and I spoke about, the demographic changes that were going to happen, and we spoke about this in the first months of 2020, how the sands were going to shift and the population was going to shift rapidly, and here we are, smack bang in the middle of what we said would happen, and it's happening, and it's unfolding before our eyes.
Yeah, well, you are a demographic shift. I can confirm that. Now, let's just change the subject a little bit, because we've been talking a little bit about scamming, right? And phishing emails seem to be very much in vogue at the moment.
Look, there are a lot of phishing emails you spoke about on that video with regards to the bank sending you a link, and so forth, and the uncertainty of what's going on out there. I've had a couple of clients and associates that work in our office as well that have purchased property and be looking at making transactions for deposits and so forth, and we're talking $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 transfers of banks, and they get a call from the bank saying, could we ask you what are you doing with this money? Asking them if they've by any chance involved or have been persuaded to make these transfers for as they call it, for emotional transfers, meaning have they been enticed to give money to people that have had some sort of emotional plea over the internet, and that they've been caught up with. And apparently that's very popular once again from all these scammers, because obviously not necessarily for relationships, but people asking for money because of saying that they're in dire straits and the circumstances which the pandemic's put them in, that they need money and so forth. So it's amazing. So when I watched your video, it just sort of I was already hearing this around the traps, and it was just when I watched your video, it just confirmed what's going on, and it's to wonder how big of scale is this really happening at.
Well, it's interesting. Of course, it's hard to know, but the ACCC Scam Watch has said that there's been a huge increase in the number of fraudulent transactions, and you receive an email with a link, you click through to the link, and you think you're in your bank website, for example, but you're not. You're in somebody else, and they basically then steal your credentials, or you got to be really, really careful. And the point of the video was to highlight the fact that there was my bank basically encouraging behavior which the ACCC said you shouldn't do, which doesn't make any sense at all. So folks, don't click through that link. Don't put any personal information into a web form on the assumption that you're dealing with your bank. Just check first, right? Because it is actually quite easy to get tricked. And you make the point about emotion, right? So that you can be forced into acting quickly. That happens quite often, where they try, a scammer will basically give you a sob story or an emergency transfer story, and then you're off kilter and you don't think about it. Or more broadly, just try and offer you a deal which is a very, very good deal. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So I always say to people, be cautious, be careful, count to 10, and just ask yourself before you do anything, could this be a scam?
And with all these changes, Martin, even when I opened up the crypto account with that company, as I posted on Twitter, it asked me to go to some sites that would link up with my bank in order to make a direct deposit, and I could have the funds in that wallet within minutes. And I sat there, looked at it, and tried to do a little bit of Googling as to what it was all about. And it was, although it seemed legitimate, but I chose the option of just making a transfer that it would take 2 to 3 days for the money to get in. But lo and behold, the crypto market was tanking anyway, so it saved me, because I haven't activated it yet. I think it'll probably be active tomorrow, so I can start trading tomorrow and putting it all in practice. So by not clicking that link, it saved me money already, Martin.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I told you to buy the dip. In other words, Bitcoin's continuing to fall at the moment, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it go even further down. Old Elon, your friend, basically said, well, maybe Bitcoin isn't as good as it was because of all the energy stuff, right? I think crypto is going to go through an interesting and bumpy ride. So buy the dips.
Well, look, it as I said, Martin, with everything, and as you and I point out, and with regards to the property and what we know, what we do, and how we do it, it's all about researching, understanding, and in my space, it's almost 30 years of experience of being around in this market and beyond, and from understanding like how things are built and being involved in construction and medium density and high rise and just about everything else out there. So it's about understanding. So with this. With any investment, as you said earlier on, you need to understand it. You need to learn about it and not just go wild. But there's a lot of great people out there. They do a lot of research, and I thank them for the links that they've sent me through DM and it's an interesting journey. It's an interesting phase. I can't say at this moment I'm going to go hell for leather with it. But I thought I needed to understand it. If I was going to be able to communicate with the people that are involved in it and not seem ignorant or come across as being critical just because I don't understand it. So it's an opportunity.
And that's exactly why I've also been holding some cryptos for some long time, because I wanted to learn. And you can look in, but unless you actually get in the water, you won't know what the temperature of the water is. You won't know how it's actually behaving, and so it's a very good way. Just be a little bit cautious, and just remember that for every trade, there's a winner and a loser. So that's the first point. It's a zero-sum game. So everybody who's selling, somebody else is buying. And the other one is just be careful on the spreads, right? So with some of the exchanges, the spreads between buying and selling are huge. So they make a lot of money. And so you just got to watch that. Otherwise, you can suddenly find that you're paying a lot for trading. So that's the other point to bear in mind. If you are going to trade a lot, just understand what the spreads are and what that means in terms of what you lose every time you move money around.
And further to that, Martin, scams. It seems to be the subject for tonight. And there was a scam on Twitter, or what seemed to be a scam. It was very alarming to a lot of people. When I first saw the tweet, I thought there was something funny behind it. A 2-bedroom apartment in Epping, put up by the portfolio trader, a follower of ours on Twitter, and I don't know where he got the screenshot from that saying that it sold for $2,420,000. The internet lit up like a Christmas tree, and Twitter was hot.
Yep, and mainstream media too, and everyone was talking about it. It's just that it wasn't true.
No, I actually called James and I said, mate, what do you know that I don't know? And he just said, mate, I don't know what's going on. It's somebody's put that up. This is the agent. Didn't know anything about it, and he was just as surprised as everybody else. So when I spoke to him today, and I said, mate, if you can get those sort of figures, I've got two clients that have got properties just around the corner there on high-rise that have been trying to get out for the last 6 months with just as much money as what they paid for it. Can you give him a hand? And he just laughed.
Yeah, and that's the point, of course, because there's a lot of spoofing suddenly turned on the apartment sector. Have you've noticed that? But, all the data that I'm seeing suggests that apartment prices are still very, very weak and falling. High-rise particularly, and of course that ABC article from the other day citing more poor quality construction in yet more high-rises, it is the point. We know that there's a lot of very faulty high-rise buildings around, more stuff being built, and many property investors trying to get out with their shirts whilst prices continue to fall. That's the true story in the apartment sector in both Sydney and Melbourne.
Well, that's right, but it was interesting to see the comments after our mate posted it up on Twitter, and how people just got very emotional about it from all sides of the coin. All sides were going at it, but it was interesting to also note how people actually believed that these prices, that a price like that was paid for. Without doing further investigation and research with whether or not it was legitimate. And when you do some comparable, when you do historical searches of comparable sales within a few months, you see a spread of like apartments being sold for $650,000, and for this one to be sold at $2.4 too. It was, there was always something wrong with it. But it was interesting to see how people took the bait and just began to comment, and it was it was rather comical, some of the commentary that was made, but it did raise a number of points, how people are very much on edge with the property market, and who's to blame them, Martin, with what the government and all the fiasco, all the crap that the government's implemented and continues to implement. And now we have to pay for, or the Victorians or investors, or basically people that have bought property or the property's gone up in value because of the silly money that's been thrown around, and future development proposals. The council are now going to rezone industrial and commercial areas for high rise once again, and because they want an upside of the fat, they want 50% of the upside as well, shared above 500,000 and so forth. I mean, this isn't old. This happened in Parramatta Council, but all this shenanigans is another scam that the government just putting out there.
Yeah, it's about revenue raising, and in fact the Victorian announcement, which included of course some high levels of stamp duty and things as well for other types of transactions, is all about trying to repair the budget deficit that's been created, and unfortunately a lot of property is going to be taking more fees out and back to council once again. We've seen it before, we'll see it again, and that's one of the reasons why the local authorities do not want to turn off the property dynamo, because they are so reliant on the income streams, be it stamp duty or other development fees from all of this construction. And I think it's pretty shameful, frankly, that they on one hand say, housing affordability is a real problem, yet on the other hand they look for every opportunity to revenue raise.
Well, that's right, but it's ironic how the stupidity of the government's also going moving forward with high-rise development. I mean, don't they understand that people don't necessarily want to live in high-rises anymore? They want to stay away from it. Particularly, they talk about joint ventures with public housing, doing partnership agreements with private institutions, which is your build to rent stuff, which is really going to disenfranchise a lot of people that have individuals that invested in other blocks. So we've talked about that in the past and how that's going to hurt the individual investors. But what are they building? High rise. Can we build high rise? I don't think so. There's only a handful of companies in Australia that can build high rise legitimately and can build them well. But if you're going to build them well, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. But again, it's that mental shift, that mindset that people have got now because of all the uncertainty with regards to the viruses and future pandemics. Now, we've talked about it also, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we spoke about future developments of the virus and how it was just going to mutate. And there's, the question is do they really have control of this thing, or don't they? And to me, all indicators point to having no control, and therefore people aren't confident, so they are not looking at living in high-rise, horror, or in this, as I call them, this $1 million ghettos. They want to live with a bit of space. They want a bit of land. So it's the stupidity. So that's why I just lumbered all this up with all the scams that are going on. The government's just continues to blindfold us of all persuasions, and continue to scam us from our future.
Absolutely, and that is the point. Of course, down the track, we're going to be paying dear for this. And, those poorly constructed high-rise buildings that will either have to be demolished or will require major remediation. Well, it's clear to me that, the individual owners are going to pay through the nose. But at some point, I think some of it's going to come back to the public purse too. So this is a massive amount of bad process over many, many years, which is coming home to roost. The price ticket will be huge, and it's going to have a very significant impact on the property market overall. And no one is really being held accountable, and that's the thing that I'm most annoyed about, really, Edwin. That we just seem to be, muddling our way through and just throwing more stuff up and saying, it'll be fine, right, without getting to the root cause issues, which are poor planning, poor supervision of construction, poor design, poor execution, poor implementation, and more scams.
That's right, and the biggest scam of all is putting young families, single parent families, into these high-rise apartments when they got little ones that all they've got is a 1.2 or 1.5 meter balcony by 3 meters to run around in. It's crazy. It's insanity, but yet we're held to ransom by again the stupidity of the local, state, and federal governments of all persuasions. But yet these things don't change. They keep on doing the same shit over and over again, thinking that there's going to be a different tomorrow.
Well, the old definition of idiocy is completely doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. Well, we're getting the same outcome, right? And look, talking about outcomes, you've got a story about a rent-to-buy scheme that went terribly, terribly wrong, and this is a real object lesson.
Yeah, this is another scam. Now, there was a lot of publicity a number of years ago with regards to the originator of the rent-to-buy scheme, but I just thought I'd bring it to our viewers today. Because it's a property that an agent that we often contact to see if they've got any off-market properties. He started chatting. We had a coffee, and he started telling me about this listing opportunity that he attended and he is actually asking me if for advice more than anything with whether or not he should list it. And when I got to the nuts and bolts of it, what it was is a family bought a property for 4 years ago under this rent-to-buy scheme, and at an agreed price of $750,000. So when he said that to me, I said to him, "What was your appraisal of that property today?" And he said, "Well, it would barely make $750 now, given all the given the condition of the market right now." So, and I asked him, I said, "Look, 4 years ago, what price would you put on that property?" He knows the area very well. He's worked in the area for about 21 years. And he said, "Look, 4 years ago, the property was not worth more than $560,000. So this individual that owns the home went into, put some, got, you could say, people that to buy the property at a price of $750, projected price of $750 at that time, and an agreed price of $750. And the way they operate was that they, rather than paying the market rent, they pay above the market rent, and part of that on the rent obviously goes to the owner of the property. Then the figure above the market rent is the owner of the property puts part of it away and contributes that towards a deposit for the people that take on this opportunity. In this case, they began to pay, or they've been paying for the last 4 years, $900 a week. The standard rent back then was something like $360 a week, and that's on a really good property. So they were paying $900 a week, Martin, and they'd been paying that for 4 years. The nuts and bolts of this whole thing is that right now that property is not worth $750. Hardly part of the extra rental, the income that they paid, hardly makes up any form of deposit whatsoever to be able to purchase the property or to be able to get something out of it. Bottom line is these poor bastards are gonna potentially walk away with owing the property owner money once the property is sold. So I just said to the agent, look, it's if you take on the listing, they're not the parties that are going to obviously be able to sign the agency agreement for starters, although they want to sell to get out of this scheme. The party that owns the property that's on title is the one that's going to have to sign the agency agreement, and they have to do it in unison, in agreement, and they have to sort out the fee structure and who's going to pay you and so forth. It's a mess, but there's more and more of this out there, Martin. It's not just the one incident, but it just came up towards the end of last week, and because we were talking about scams today, I thought I'd throw this one in.
Well, I think it's a very relevant case study, Edwin. Rent to buy is a real trap, and it sounds superficially alluring quite often, but the fact of the matter is that you end up paying a lot more, and you have much less flexibility, and you carry much more of the risks than you might appear to. And interestingly, in the UK, they've gone through a similar process with rent to buy over there too. And that's been running for a few years now. And many people have been lumbered with property that essentially was overpriced when it was sold. They've paid a lot more than they should have, up front, and also through the life of the rent to buy. And now they still have not been able to actually basically get out at the end of that because prices have not moved appropriately. There are so many risks. I just say to people, unless you really know what you're doing here, it may sound superficially attractive, but avoid it like the plague. It just is not worth it. No,
and this is going back to what we were talking earlier on with regards to scams and the way that the government operates. It creates these environments and creates these opportunities for these scammers to just thrive. I know it's an illegal practice, but look, people are still doing it, regardless of the fact that it's in WA. A major case was heard there, and the originator was, I believe, he's put in jail. But at what cost? At the cost of thousands of families that are still stuck in these stupid investment opportunities, and unfortunately, why? Because they were desperate. They were desperate to, and people are desperate. Young families are desperate. Young families, families in general are desperate to put their families, their kids in a home, in a secure place where, because of there's so much uncertainty, and the government just wants to build more apartments, just wants to build more shitty developments, and not look at the root cause of the problems and the issues. They just want to throw more money at it. One has to ask the question: do they really understand that all this money that's thrown at these schemes that they come up with, all that does is adds more into the coffers of the property owners, the developers, and the construction companies? Do they not realise that?
Well, the old saying, follow the money, Edwin, follow the money. And you can clearly follow the money here, right, back to the developers and those who actually concocted the scheme in the first place, plus a large flow of money going to the local councils for all the construction fees, et cetera, right? So unfortunately, they look at those sorts of factors rather than the root cause questions, which is, why is property so expensive, astronomically expensive compared with where it should be? And frankly, just creating more and more opportunity for people to borrow more and get more schemes to get into the market to lift prices even higher is not a solution. It is basically just digging a bigger hole, and unfortunately that hole is really, really, really deep now. And as we know, when you have really deep holes, they tend to flood and all sorts of nasty things happen. And I'm afraid that follow the money suggests that the people in power aren't really interested in helping genuine people to get into the market. They're much more interested in the cash flow, the money, and making some winning deals. And that's shameful, but unfortunately, both at a federal and state level, that is the state of play.
Look, it is, and I'm sort of been thinking more and more that one of the unfortunate things is, Martin, is that these young families people that have struggled to get into owning a home, owning a bit of land, they're going to start looking back at these death traps of high-rise developments, because they will get cheaper, and that's the unfortunate thing, that they're going to be forced to go back, because that's the only thing that they're going to be able to afford. Again, because they're only going to get cheaper, and regardless of the fact that they're building all these other high-rise developments around, and they tell you how good they are, how suited they are for the small families, they're not. At the end of the day, there's still death traps. Unless you get a first-tier builder to build these damn things, and unless they're built in a way that that's more functional for these young families. I mean, there's a lot of issues that the government, as you said, just overlook because of the money trail and what goes on. And look, it's evident in the ABC article that we just spoke about earlier on, with regards to the rezoning of industrial land for high-rise development of all things. Why? Because the local council are going to get 50% upside of the FAT above $500,000. I mean, it's just insanity. The world has just gone mad, and I don't know what it's going to take to wake these politicians up, Martin.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. That high-rise article from the ABC prompted a whistleblower that I know very well to let me know something which is not in the public domain, and that is that the land was originally owned by one of the state entities. I won't say which one. They did a geotech study on it, and the geotech study came back with very, very bad results, suggesting that the land was unstable and would require significant remediation if it was going to be built on. And they then promptly sold it to an overseas buyer because they didn't want to get involved with all of the processes around trying to fix it up. Now, whether that's true or not, don't know, but it has a ring of truth to it. And I just think of Opal Tower, Mascot Towers, some others that people have been telling me about in other locations across the country as well, right? There's a bit of a history here where if you end up with land that's not in great shape, what you do is you hide it, flog it off to somebody else and let them deal with it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was doing more actively, I've stopped mainly because of the threats and everything else, and other warnings that I was getting when I was doing a lot of speaking against the high-rise developments in a lot of the commercial areas, and particularly around Parramatta. You only have to, as you say, you only have to follow the money trail there with regards to some of the developments and what happened to the ex-mayors. Whether they got Aldi recyclable bags or whether they got brown paper bags, it doesn't mean anything. What type of bag it was, they got well looked after to put these monstrosities up on land that you shouldn't be digging more than 2 basements, but yet you find that in some of these buildings have got 3, 4, and they'll sneak in a 5th one if they really can. And then you look at the dodgy deals between councils themselves, with Hurstville Council, Parramatta Council, and developers, where they made deals on public sites, car parks, swimming pools, and everything to rezone them for high-rise development. And you don't have to look at the parties involved with that. It just goes on and on. It's I know what the answer is in terms of it's just gone out of control. How far they're going to be allowed to continue with this BS, I don't know. Sometimes you feel like an individual in the wilderness calling this stuff out. And as I said, I've had to back down a lot because of all sorts of threats and all sorts of meaningful discussions that I've had with some third parties that are involved with developers.
Yeah, no, it's not right but unfortunately it is rife. And interestingly, the WeChat chatters are actually ahead of us, right? Because they're saying don't go anywhere near high-rise apartments, right? Go for those lower density, older style block configurations or land.
Look, they know what's coming. They know, and they're also looking for lifestyle. And what they're basically been saying in the last week or so is if you've got no other choice but to buy into an apartment, because obviously home prices or any type of dwelling with a bit of land is just going through the roof. Look for the low density apartment blocks that can provide a bit of lifestyle, and don't necessarily look for blocks of units or apartments or high rise that are close to commercial hubs, because they feel that the commercial centres are slowly dying away. But this is what we've been saying anyway, because a lot of them are very entrepreneurial. A lot of our Asian friends and people here in Australia are very, very entrepreneurial, and as you know, Martin, they've been very, very much into building businesses, establishing restaurants, takeaway shops, and whatever. It's because of the nature and the way they do things. But they're keeping away from all that because they can see the central hubs, the commercial hubs just dying away. I mean, I think it's only 50% occupancy at the moment in the city. I don't know how much it is in Parramatta or Chatswood, but there's you drive through Leichhardt and you only see shop after shop after shop, shop front after shop front, with for lease signs plastered all over, because there's just no walking traffic. Things have turned. Things will continue to change, but as we follow the WeChat chatter as what they're up to, it's made sense so far, and I think it will continue to make sense.
Well, very interesting, Edwin, as always. And, the property market is worth studying in detail. As we say, things are changing quite fast. In fact, I've got Veronica Morgan on my show tomorrow for my live stream. So Veronica and I will be pulling the property market apart from her perspective. So I'll be interested to see what she thinks is going on. But there are some big changes ahead, I think. And so, folks, be cautious, be careful. Make slow and careful decisions. Don't just get bounced into stuff just because everybody else is chasing some sort of pipe dream, because frankly you can often repent at your leisure.
Yeah, and look, you only have to also look at I think the decisions that people are going to be making are going to be based on trying to look as far ahead as possible with, as we said in the last podcast, with what's happening with not only global economics, but with also the tensions around the world, rumors of war and wars and all this uncertainty. So look, I've got to say, if you can't buy, if you're after land, if you're after a home other than an apartment or a high rise, and you're after land, look, just start looking a little bit further afield in order to realise the dream. Because once the international borders are open, it's going to be another shifting of the sands, because at the end of that, we don't know who's going to come and how what's going to drive them. One thing for sure that all our WeChat chatterers and the groups that we monitor are saying, as I've been sharing on our videos, Martin, is that they are looking at land. They're not coming in from these people. They're looking at PR, that have got PR, that are ready to come over. They're not looking at apartments, and they will travel an hour to an hour and a half, because that's what they're used to traveling over in America already to go to work anyway. And for them to travel an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes is not going to mean a lot if they commute that that amount of time here when they get here. So it's changing times, interesting times, and I'm freezing my ass off, Martin. So I've got to go.
Well, Edwin, thank you for your sturdy presentation tonight, and I could tell you we're getting a bit chilly around the edges. So very good to to see you and to know that we can still do this, even if you're up a tree or whatever it is. And I look forward to next week. Go in, get some warmth in you, and get ready to start repairing that lawnmower.
Yeah, that lawnmower, it's a feature of the property. Look, next week I'll have the studio set up. It's just a bit all over the place, and I haven't got the internet in there. And seriously, this was the best spot for just making it for internet connection. So I just didn't want to drop out halfway through our discussion, Martin. So, but next week, NBN will be up and running, and I'll be cozy in my studio.
I look forward to that. And while this works, that was tremendous. Have a good evening, stay warm, and we'll talk again next week.
All the best, Martin.
See ya.
Bye.